Hey guys, welcome back to the studio for another lesson. This week I wanted to take you through some foundational chord moves that you should know, especially if you're just getting into using Barry Harris's scales of chords. Or maybe you're familiar with the concepts and note scales, but you're struggling to work out how to apply them to standard tunes. Now, the moves that we'll cover in today's lesson are critical, in my view, to making sense of it all and putting the concepts Barry left for us to work in our chordal playing. You guys ready? Let's get started. First things you'll hear folks who are followers of Barry's harmonic method talk about is usually an idea he called 6 on the 5th or 6 on the 5. Theoretically speaking, this is a pretty simple concept. If we play a major 6 chord from the 5th of our tonic, then we'll get a major 9 type of sound. Now, this is valuable and an important substitution, but it doesn't create the type of movement that we associate with the 6 diminished concept. What I want to spend time exploring right now is how we can use the diminished that connects our tonic chord and the 6 on the 5 to create that movement in a few different contexts. First, let's just explore the movement in drop 2 voicings on the middle 4 strings without being concerned with what harmony we're playing this over. It's equally important to familiarize yourself with playing this movement on other string sets that we can play drop 2 chords on. Personally though, I almost never play these sounds on the low strings. I do, however, spend an awful lot of time on the top 4 strings, especially when I'm using these concepts to play a more active accompaniment or a chord melody. So for today, let's check out playing the same movement that we just did, but on the top 4 strings this time. Once you're comfortable playing the movement, I think the next step is to explore how this sounds when played in some different contexts. For example, we already know that if we play the 6 on the 5 against the tonic, we get the sound of a major ninth. But if we use this motion connecting both the 6 on the 5 and the tonic chord with the diminished in between over a drone of the tonic, we'll get some nice sounds to break up a static chord. Here's an example for you to check out how that sounds. The same exact motion can also function over a minor 2 chord. For example, if we're playing a 2-5 in the key of C, we can play C6 into C diminished into F6 to create motion on the 2 chord. Now let's play that same movement we did before, but this time it's going to function as our 2 chord instead of the tonic. Finally, we need to be able to create motion to the 5 chord using this framework. Now, there's lots of ways to do this using different scales of chords, but the simplest and most straightforward way is to just pull our F6 chord down into the diminished that it comes from, as if we're going to again play 6 on the 5 motion. However, in this case, we're going to leave it unresolved and let the diminished consisting of D, F, A flat, and B function as our dominant chord. We'll then do this movement from every inversion and resolve on the last one to a G6 over C. Check out how that sounds. When you start to get your hands around this movement, you'll see that connecting the different scales of chords isn't all that difficult. In truth, you're always pulling into a diminished chord that can connect you directly to another family member chord, or one that connects you where you need to go via the scale. In other words, the diminished that you move into is either the parent chord of where you're resolving it to, or the off chord in the scale that it belongs to. In the PDF for this lesson, I've also written out some additional examples for you to practice using this motion over a simple 2-5 progression, using both the major 2-5 motion and the minor 2-5 that uses a slightly different take on the 6 on the 5th concept. There's also a couple of exercises in there demonstrating how you can use this movement to cycle through keys along the circle of fourths, which I always find super beneficial to practice. To round this lesson out today, though, I think we should check out applying these concepts to the first 4 bars of All the Things You Are. Before we get to that, though, I do need to take a quick break and give a shout out to TRUEFIRE.com for supporting the channel. TRUEFIRE is an online lesson library that's host to literally thousands of courses on a wide range of musical topics from some really amazing artists and educators, including yours truly. If you're interested in improving your comping, make sure to check out my course, Exploring Melodic Jazz Comping, available on TRUEFIRE now. In this course, I'll demonstrate and break down 17 essential comping approaches using TRUEFIRE's interactive learning tools. We'll work on a colorful variety of melodic and harmonic approaches using drop 2 voicings, chord substitutions, approach chords, diminished concepts, and voice leading. We'll also dive into triadic approaches, partial chords, using scales as chords, and the art of borrowing notes and dominants. You'll learn how these melodic comping approaches can be artistically applied using backing tracks based on the changes to popular jazz standards like Autumn Leaves, There Will Never Be Another You, and All the Things You Are. The link to the course is in the description of this video. Now let's get back to the lesson and work out applying this type of movement-oriented playing to all the things. When we're working out how to apply Barry's harmonic framework to standard tunes, we need to be aware of what scales of chords can apply to which harmonies. Based on what we've been working through today, the first 4 bars of All the Things You Are presents a perfect case study in applying this movement. By taking advantage of the motion that occurs when we play 6 on the 5th, we can work our way down through the chord changes in a way that's really elegant and not at all focused on individual chord voicings. Take a listen to how this sounds if we start from A flat 6 with the 6 in the bass, and then I'll explain how it works. If you know the changes to All the Things, then the first chord here seems obvious. It's just an F minor 7, right? Well, no, not exactly. In this world, we'll think about this chord as A flat 6, which is part of the A flat 6 diminished scale. This allows us to pull it down into the diminished that connects us to D flat, which is going to stand in for B flat minor 7. So instead of a disjointed move from this F minor 7 to this B flat minor 7, instead we have a more elegant and connected move from A flat 6 to F diminished to D flat 6 in first inversion. And then on our way to E flat 7, we're first going to pull down into B flat minor 6 as a substitute, since it connects to D flat via both F diminished and E diminished. Now we can pull that down from B flat minor into E diminished to make the move going to the tonic a little smoother. But instead of going to A flat, we're instead going to play 6 on the 5 of A flat, which is E flat 6. So the movement for the first 4 bars now says A flat 6 into F diminished into D flat 6, and that moves into B flat minor 6 into E diminished, and finally home to E flat 6. Now, once we understand how this movement works and how it feels to play, we can then do it from different versions of our starting A flat 6 chord. Here's an example of one of those other inversions for you to check out now. Of course, this isn't all that's available to us now that we're thinking about movement rather than static chords. We can also make use of the 6 on the 5 motion over both the F minor and B flat minor chords. For F minor, we think about 6 on the 5 of A flat 6. So that means we can use E flat 6 to connect to A flat. And then we can use that to connect to D flat. Here's a couple of quick examples of how that'd sound. We can also extend this into D flat and use the same principle to keep the motion going a bit longer. Here's an example of how that might sound. I hope you're starting to see how these sorts of movements can be applied to changes that we're used to seeing all the time. I think when you really start to get your head around this stuff, it's actually quite easy to create nice chordal movement that doesn't require us to memorize a ton of different voicings. In fact, what I've shown you today is really just scratching the surface, especially since we haven't touched at all on any kind of rhythmic variation. Since we've only worked on drop 2 chords moving in parallel motion, there's a ton more ground to cover, and over the next several weeks, I plan to do just that. We're going to continue talking about different sections of this tune and others using different levels of depth to our chords and exploring different possibilities for creating this kind of motion while building on this foundation. Before we go today, I want to leave you with a couple more examples of what this kind of movement-based playing sounds like over the first few bars of All the Things. In these last couple of examples, I'll make use of everything we've done so far today so you can hear what it sounds like when you're a bit more comfortable playing these moves. Thanks so much for sticking around all the way to the end of today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the lesson. You know, Barry's harmonic system is so deep, and even though we've covered this kind of thing before, I think it's valuable to return to it and check out how we can implement these ideas in ways we might not have examined fully. As always, if you guys did find today's lesson helpful, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications too. If you want to access the full PDF for today's lesson, you can grab that, along with the whole back catalog for all the videos on the channel, for just $10 a month over at my Patreon page, or by just hitting the join button right here on YouTube. A big thanks to all of my patrons and YouTube members, which you should see scrolling past. Now, the community is growing every day, and I'm always hard at work trying to develop new resources and content for you guys. So don't be shy about getting in touch and letting me know what topics of study you'd like to see covered in future lessons. Special thanks to new members Andres Peralta, Jens Brunig, Jan Kilbas, and Robert Goldsmith. Welcome to the studio, guys. An extra special thanks to Jazz Luminaire patrons Bill Jacob and Bill Hayes. Thank you guys all so much for your continued support. I'm David Shore, and thanks again for hanging with me at the studio today. I'll see you guys next time.